This is Tipping Point Radio, and you're listening to The 42 Show. What is our purpose in life? And do we even need to have a purpose to lead happy lives? Also, what do we do with unrealized dreams and the so-called unlived life? Well, that's what we start off with. Then we end up talking about free will. Is life predetermined? Actually, talking isn't as accurate as arguing. Arguing to the point that Morgan is stunned into a deep silence. All this and more as three guys pursue the answers to life, the universe, and everything. Hello everyone, this is 42 Show, here with Morgan Boatman and Brad Olson. I'm Craig Merriweather, and today...
And the ants!
It's March, so the ants are coming into my house, and we're talking about life purpose. And this is actually, being men of a certain age, this is actually an interesting subject, because...
Do we ever not have an interesting subject, Craig?
Well, no, absolutely not, but it's just very poignant, I think right now, is the midlife crisis thing might start hitting, or has already hit, and we start to reevaluate and maybe try to redesign the last 40, 50 years of our life. So what is life purpose?
The next 40 or 50, not necessarily the last.
Well, you're doing all this stuff with genetics and things, and stem cells, you never know.
So the reason I thought of it, are you done? You going? No, I don't want to step on your toes yet.
No, it was just a little hostile there. That's okay. We haven't seen each other for 4 months. We go right back into it.
4 months? Is it
Just
4 months?
It was beginning of
It's
summer.
awful.
Yeah,
We don't want to lose our fan. We better keep I thought of life purpose because I read this passage out of, everybody's familiar with Eckhart Tolle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he says, people ask me about life purpose. Right? He says, don't worry about your life purpose. Your purpose is right now. Whatever you're doing right now is your life purpose. And that's it. It doesn't answer the question that the person actually had. I'm not talking about what to do with my life right now. I'm talking about, is there a way to feel like my life is worth or has a direction that I can be proud of?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's an issue that men have more than women, simply because of our biology. Maybe, having a baby is pretty consuming, but it's a man's choice to be engaged in that enterprise, and we have chosen to be very engaged in it. But it's still, and it's wonderful, and it's great to be a father and a husband and everything else, but there's still something that, we feel there should be something that is ours. Something that I can do that no one else can do that is a reason to be here. I was wondering what...
I agree with you.
What you guys
I think that as I understand what Eckhart Tolle and others who say that kind of stuff, I understand what they're getting at, but I also think it's a cop-out answer because you want your life to have purpose. And I guess it just comes down to how the individual defines what purpose is and what that worth is. And I've spent a lot of time in my younger years, and maybe even up till recently to a certain extent, trying to gauge my purpose and worth by the outside world standards. And, well, I have a beautiful life, but I wanted these other things, the fancy travel and the whatever, these different things. And it's like, well, if I don't have those things, that must mean I haven't accomplished what I feel I've wanted to do here. And I haven't reached, I do these podcasts because I really, really love them. And
the podcast seems different than fancy travel to me.
Well, yeah, and it is. And it's just fun. I wanted to build it into something that maybe even could carry me as a career, and maybe it still will. Maybe who knows what will happen tomorrow.
But I don't travel as a purpose or as a reward for purpose.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, no, definitely reward. Definitely reward. And therefore, if the reward's not there, I must not have reached my purpose. I see
No,
what you're
that's
saying.
interesting.
Because here's the life I'd like to lead, and not to say I don't have a happy, wonderful life, but it's like, well, I'd love to just be able to go to New York and see some theater, or take a week off and explore the desert, or whatever, and at my choosing, and not worry about writing the check or asking somebody, may I have the time off, please. Just have a life where I can say, well, I've worked a couple months and now I'd like to take 2 weeks off to go on safari. Because I've never done that before. And that would require me to have fulfilled a purpose that I had designed in my head.
So do you see your purpose as an enterprise that must have some reward other than itself?
What I wanted was the ability to just reach people, which I am. I just wanted a few more zeros behind the amount of people I'm reaching. I'd rather, I'd love to have 100,000, 500,000 people listening to these things and.
But what would that give you besides? Will it give
you? You know what? It probably wouldn't give me anything, because once I hit 500,000, I'm like, why don't I have a million? Why aren't I going on after Larry King? Why don't I have my own internet show? And why aren't I? Because it's all be fun.
That's exactly what Tolla's talking about.
Exactly, I know. In essence.
But you just call him copping out.
I do, because I also go with, that's not what I want to hear.
So
that's not the answer I want.
You want the big stuff, but you want the big stuff. You want it to stop somewhere, so that so you can stand by and say, there, I've achieved my purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, you already achieved your biological purpose. You have a son.
Yeah.
And,
I made. Yeah.
So what's left?
Exactly. Well, exactly, and that's the thing. It's like, well, how do you spend the next 40, 50
You're
years?
a spring flower. You should wither and die now.
Come on. There's your T-shirt for you.
I like that.
So I'm glad I'm not the only one who has to call bullshit on some of this kind of stuff, like the Eckhart Tolle quote. And I think he is probably alluding to something deeper, but we seem to live in a culture of pithy, quotable statements now, and that seems to be most important. But I think that we have exaggerated the importance of purpose. You should have a purpose. And what I've noticed is that hardly anybody wants what they have. It doesn't matter who they are. And that purpose always seems to be elusive, because I think we tend to think of purpose as existing somewhere out in the world, and we have to find it. Now, this may be where Tolle is a little more on the money, is saying that, there is no purpose out there, that you have to find. You may have to bring purpose or meaning, or whatever we want to call that, to your own life. And I don't think that being dissatisfied is antithetical to feeling like one has purpose. I don't think that longing and desire is problematic in having purpose. And in fact, I think that longing may be the way to find one's purpose, or at least a sense of it. And I don't think it's a really necessarily definable quality, this business of purpose. I think that exists in the same realm as soul and mind and all these other constructs that are real but not material. And we keep looking for something tangible to say, here's my purpose. And frankly, I don't know anybody that actually can live that way. Because it seems like everything we do is there's some element of randomness or accident in it.
Oh, wait. So we haven't, you said we exaggerated, you say we exaggerated purpose? It's not that we poorly defined it.
Yeah.
And what we're really looking for is some form of control. So we go into this life, and I don't mean we birth and stuff. We go into adulthood, let's say, and with all these ideas, and they're one by one stripped from us, and somebody else is telling us to do this, and somebody else is telling us to do this, and we're left with this rind of who we are, who we thought we would be, And of course we're looking for purpose. We're looking for something to fill that gap left over. But all we're looking for is a little bit of control, something we can call our own, that we've developed and made and said, this is a really cool thing that I can say that no one else can do.
Right.
That's what goes on in my mind. Anyway.
What a good boy am I.
To myself, though.
Yeah, exactly. But see, here's the thing. I think what you put your finger on is really important. This business of the unlived lives that we all carry around with us. And what do we do with those unlived lives? Do we, usually they keep us awake at night.
We chuck them out.
We check them out. But I'm thinking that we got to find a different way to be in relationship to that unlived life, because too often what I see in the consulting room as a therapist is that we define our lives sort of by the life we've lost. And so the story of our life becomes the story of the life we've not been able to live.
Yeah. We're edging dangerously close to the F word, failure.
Oh, yeah.
Is that dangerous?
Did you listen to a show that I've never aired?
No, I haven't had the courage to listen to that.
How can I listen to a show that you've never aired?
I'll send it to you. So we have these unlived lives, and you spend a lot of time grieving what you didn't live, because that was very important. I mean, the people are in your office because there's pain and hurt in not fulfilling what they thought their purpose was. Mm-hmm. And you can say, well, your purpose is to love and to serve humanity and be with family, but to a certain extent, you want that, your ego wants that glory of being on top or being a success, however you might just find that, either financially or reaching a lot of people with a podcast or however you find that.
I gotta stop you, because I hate blaming the ego, whatever the hell that is, for something that I think I want to do with my life.
Mm-hmm. Then do it. But I think the disappointment comes when you don't reach a predetermined level of success.
Well,
That's arbitrary.
There's an idea in our culture that I think is fairly strong, that you measure success in material ways. And I don't mean just money, but I mean you measure success in tangible, right, quantitative ways. And I'm not sure that that's the right lens, because in that quantitative world, there's no room for an aesthetic experience. There's just quantification. Now, I suppose you can find some beauty in numbers, but that aesthetic quality is not really something that you can quantify or clearly define.
No,
right?
And it's stripped of meaning because of that.
And that is, I think, the feedback that maybe we give ourselves or that we find in our daily endeavors that tells us we have purpose. I'm having this aesthetic experience of my life. It's beautiful, whether that's love or what have you. So one of the things that we don't do very well is, first of all, we don't accept the conditions of being human, and those conditions are not particularly pleasant. To be human means that in some way, sooner or later, you run up against your own incompetence. You run up against your own longing and your own desire. You run up against, as you said, failure. And we don't seem to accept that as part of the human condition. Now, and if we were to, so that keeps us focused, right, on the unlived life. And if we were to be able to accept those things and somehow find a way to honor them or valorize them, and then perhaps what we discover is that element of beauty, because that beauty always exists in things that are relatively rare or fragile or short-lived or something like that. Beauty doesn't seem to be an enduring quality. And because something is rare or brief or uncommon, That's part of what contributes to it being beautiful. But we see ourselves in our own shortcomings as somehow not beautiful. And so that keeps us focused on trying to think about the unlived life rather than addressing the life that we've got, if that makes any sense.
Because we see the unlived life as something more beautiful?
Yeah, because in that unlived life, right, we're always special.
Mm-hmm.
Special.
And in that unlived life, we're always competent. We always make the right choice. You know?
Yes.
And so this desire to be special and competent and correct and powerful and all that stuff keeps us from being what we are in the life that we've got.
That we've already built in a beautiful way. All right, next topic.
All right, you fixed? I'll figure it out.
I feel much better,
Okay,
actually.
well, okay, you feel much better, but how do you deal with the pain of the unlived life, of not getting to a point in your life where you feel you've not succeeded in reaching your purpose, fulfilling what you find valuable?
Well, you got two choices, right? You can either attempt that purpose, define it and attempt it, or suck it up and...
That's an Eckhart Tolle thing, suck it up. It's just like, you're hurt because this thing you've been trying for 10, 20 years is not working out.
But no, I'm
How
not
do you
saying
suck
what
it?
you're trying for. Because I think our purpose is... I think what we see as our purpose is even beyond what we're trying for. It's such a trap. If we were trying for it, wouldn't we be doing it? Come
I
on.
don't know.
You don't know.
I mean, if life circumstances gets in your way, your job will not allow you to just take off for 3 weeks to Fiji, let alone your bank account. I'm not saying how...
But is that... You see that as your purpose? As some component of your purpose?
No, I don't say it's purpose, but it's on the plan. I mean, it's part of the life plan. And,
So
and
when you're dead on your gravestone, you want me to make sure and put, I went to Fiji. Craig, I went to Fiji.
As long as it has a big middle finger that says this is for Morgan, I'm fine with whatever you put on there.
I'm not going to put that on there.
Um,
Really, that middle finger is to yourself.
oh,
I
jeez,
went
Eckhart
to
Tolle.
Fiji. Stop
God.
saying Tolle. Okay, this is to everyone who's ever listened to anything. Stop saying Tolle. His name is not Tolle.
What is it?
It's Tolle.
Ah, okay.
Is it German?
Mm-hmm. Like Hesse. You don't say Hesse, do you? Oh, you probably do.
But so here's the thing though. I have such a problem with this stuff. This worked for him. It was fine for him to sit on that park bench day in and day out. That actually worked for him. That paid off. That's not going to work for most people.
I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, just like going to a monastery and living your life there isn't going to work for most people.
I think people gravitate toward people who have things that work because they feel like they are not working. But that certainly doesn't mean that same process is going to work.
And we confuse purpose with working, right?
With functioning.
Yeah, well, we say, well, how do you pronounce his name?
Taylor.
He's got a purpose, right? But we can't.
Which is now to tell us our purpose.
Yeah, which is kind of fucked up. Again, that's having that purpose come from the outer world.
From outside. Oh, yeah.
Well, I think when you
I'm
said,
telling you, find your inner purpose in yourself, and don't listen to me. That's like that old Steve Martin routine where he says, he gets the whole audience to repeat.
Oh,
And then he says, I will not repeat what other people said. And they all say, I will not repeat what other people said.
He's a genius, though, I think.
Totally.
An absurdist genius.
I wonder what career that guy has had.
No, we're not going there.
Okay. I want to say somebody I very much.
Must be fulfilling his purpose.
One of you mentioned control a while ago, and I think it gets frustrating when you think you're out of control and you have no ability to change a situation. Say if you feel you're on this path, you're not fulfilling your purpose, you feel out of control not to change it. And that's where the Eckhart quote,
E.T.
E.T. Quote comes from. It's like, well, can you not just be satisfied and happy with what's here now,
My God, no, yeah.
even though you're still moving towards a goal, hopefully? But isn't that why we're upset and frustrated and grieving? Is because of what happened in the past or what has yet to happen in the now? So we're jonesing for the future. So we can't be happy now, which we're upset, and then we end up, in trouble and hurt and in pain.
Right, and so we don't live the life we have.
So we got to listen to Eckhart after all.
Well, I think that this has worked for him. And is it wise to listen to somebody who has found a way to make life work, reasonably well for them? Yeah, I think that's worth listening to. I don't think it's worth adopting as doctrine. So I'm a depth psychologist. I have a great debt to Freud and Jung. But I also understand that Freud's theory of psychoanalysis and Jung's theory of analytical psychology worked for them. And anybody else who tries to create it in the way that they experienced it is bound to fail. Nobody has the same experience of anything as the founder of an idea does. And we sort of do our best to approximate that, but our job is to figure out the way for us to make our lives work. Not for somebody to tell us, here's how you do it, and you paint by numbers, and you make sure you cover all these things, and then you'll have the life you want. And
That's a horrifying proposition.
yeah,
And it's completely overwhelming.
Well, yeah, we want life to be easy.
and it's bound to fail.
Yeah, but we want easy, so we want a set of instructions.
Mm-hmm.
And these people seem to be successful and happy, and
But it's not been easy for them. I would almost guarantee that. So why should we think it's easy for us? Freud struggled almost constantly, professionally and personally, beset by many neuroses.
yeah, and who's to say he would have thought I haven't reached my purpose?
Yeah, exactly.
And I've failed because I'm unhappy and nobody's reading my work or accepting it as I'd like. And he might have, in his later years, thought that he had not reached his.
Well,
So
maybe
purpose has to be independent of reward.
maybe our purpose is to die. I mean, it seems like the aim of all life is death. So maybe we should be thinking about how do we die well. Maybe we'll find purpose in that.
Well, our idea of dying well is having done something
Having
in
the
our
most
lives.
Well, yeah, that's exactly it. Isn't it going into the grave saying, okay, I did spend 3 weeks in Fiji and I did all these things that I wanted to do instead of caring for family or.
Yeah. But I bet they would trade those 3 weeks in Fiji for 3 more weeks of reasonably healthy life. I mean, it's an interesting question,
Yeah.
right? So you can do everything you want to do, and you can travel around the world and see everything you wanted, and you can spend 3 years doing that. But then when you come home, you got to die. Well, how many people would take that deal? And that tells me that is not where we find purpose.
Well, I think that's just because people would rather be miserably comfortable than to, go out there and do the work to create their purpose. Instead of like, well, this is a goal I want to do, but, I'd rather be more comfortable at home even though I'm unhappy.
But what does
Because
that
I'll be unhappy for another 3 weeks.
But nobody wants to be miserable, even if they're comfortable.
They don't seem to be doing any
so-
work to fix it, though.
So there must be something else going on, though, in that, as what Thoreau called the life of quiet desperation. Right? There's got to be something else motivating that. And what is it that's motivating people to settle for that rather than to go out and live, more dangerously?
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, everybody would endorse, oh, I don't want that kind of life, but yet most of us have it.
It's a fear of missing the mark, of setting a goal and not hitting it. And all that brings with all the other fears that reveals is that it's easier to sit and watch what other people have achieved than stepping out and failing at your own achievement. The F word, Craig. The F word.
That word is coming
No, this is I think this is the sole reason for the existence of television generally, reality television specifically, is to do exactly that, what you just described.
To protect us from our own
Yeah.
genius, our own passions.
And this goes back to another subject we've already talked about, violence. You know, you look at the movies and TV shows and video games, and they're so violent, and it's because we're just so angry underneath that we're not willing to admit that we're unhappy and we're angry and we're raging. So we gotta.
What are you unhappy and raging and angry about, Craig?
They're unhappy with their lives.
No, you.
What do I?
Yeah. This show's all about you.
Yeah. I don't know why we need to say that out loud. I mean, I thought that was obvious.
So what are you unhappy and what are you raging about?
I'm not unhappy and raging. I don't play video games, and I don't go to violent movies, and I don't go to horror movies, and I don't do that kind of stuff. It doesn't interest me. I don't know, I'm just wondering if that's so prevalent, and we're spending billions and billions of dollars on it as a society because we are unhappy and angry, and that's because we're unhappy with the lives we have been, the cards we've been dealt.
You use that phrase a lot, the
What?
cards we've been dealt. What does that mean to you? Don't you deal your own cards?
I don't know. Well, there's another show. That'd actually be very interesting.
I mean, we talk about control and we talk about purpose. Aren't we doing this to ourselves?
Are we?
I don't think so. Not in. I mean, yeah, we contribute. We are.
Don't I have a choice? Don't I have free choice to go do what I want to do, but I'm choosing not to?
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
There's almost no debate anymore in the realm of neuroscience and philosophy about free will. It simply doesn't exist in the way that we imagine it
Okay. You're going to have to explain that one.
to. Well, most of our lives are determined by this long chain of causal events that lead us ineluctably and necessarily right to the place we are.
So when I was 3, you'd be able to tell that I'd be here at 49.
I think that there's some notion about that. I think the one place where we do have some freedom is in our own thoughts. I mean, we may not be.
Don't our thoughts guide us?
Well, not as much as one would think.
Okay,
But we
saying there
have-
isn't free will, what is there then? What did put me here?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? I mean, what does put us here? Because we have all of these illusions that seem to comfort us that we believe in, whether it's free will, or whether it is God, or whether it is democracy.
So my life is just a series and collection and coagulation of habits.
Of illusions.
Well, illusions I'll grant you. But because they're illusions, my path is much more narrow than I believe it to be.
Yes.
And illusions are mental habits. So if I really wanted to change something, I would have to break these mental habits.
Right. And so the real change occurs when we break some of these mental habits. Now, that doesn't necessarily change our life circumstance. It doesn't change the external events, but it changes our attribution about those events. And I think that's what's important. And that's where we have freedom, is what do we attribute causality? How do we understand this life?
This
that
is
we
good
have?
because that's the trap that we're in. And if we want a purpose, that would be the purpose. That would be the form of control that we don't even know we're seeking. We know we're trapped in these habits. Whatever part of us can know something like that, or at least feel it. We know that we're walking down this canyon, this slot canyon, and we feel like my dad used to say, I could quit smoking if I wanted to.
Right.
But we don't even get that far. We're just walking down this canyon, and we go, oh, well, this is free will, because I'm turning left, and I actually want to turn left. And I'm turning right because I want to turn right. But to crawl out of that canyon, that's what we think we want. Up there is the unlived life. So we think we want to do that.
No, I think you're onto it, though. I think this is a good analogy.
So
Unless-
as it gets narrower and narrower, and we're headed toward death, and we know that we only have that place to go, we feel this pressure. I can't go back. We know we can't go back, even though there were beautiful things back there, and there was more opportunity. The canyon was wider. We felt like we could go left and right, even though we were still just going back and forth like that. We long to climb out of the canyon, but how?
See, that's a really great analogy. I really like that. And it takes extraordinary effort to climb out of the canyon, right? And if you don't have the physical attributes necessary to do that, you're screwed. And so much of that is
I want to be here. I wanted to be here anyways.
yeah. So you walk to your death and sing
Because that's what you got.
because that's what you've got. Rather than walking to your death going, oh shit, I don't want to do this, and it's and your fingernails are etched into the canyon walls.
There's a lot of scraping at the end.
So then Eckhart is right.
Who's Eckhart?
You know what I'm talking about. Your German friend.
How do you mean that? What do you
Well,
mean by that?
if there's no going back,
That's
and we're
proven.
being divinely, for lack of a better word, at the moment for me.
There must be a lot better words than that.
Okay, pick one.
Because Craig told me to.
No, to say if you're being.
The great Craig. we worship Craig.
Oh, who doesn't? So you can't go back, and future's uncertain, but you seem to be.
No, that's a trick. The future is certain. That's what we see. We know what's down there.
How do you know what's down there? You can't see through the canyon. You said turn right, turn left. You don't know where it's going to end. You don't know what you're going to have to encounter. You might have to go up hills. You might have to go down into deeper valleys. You might have to.
And you missed the whole thing. That's why I come here, Craig.
But I think that if we can do that with, some resolve and some integrity and be frightened about dying because it's the unknown. It's the unknown that's put right in front of us, and that's always frightening. But if we can then still have some integrity and some nobility about that, I think we get the experience of purposefulness.
Because we are canyon walkers.
Yeah, another T-shirt. I think that's great.
This is where you make money on this.
There you go. Yeah. So my own
Bumper stickers.
clothing line.
How many bumper stickers can you sell?
Okay, so have we come to the conclusion we have no control over the purpose of our life, and that we're being guided through the canyon?
We're not being guided through the canyon.
If the canyon's built for us,
We just
but
don't
the
have
canyon.
we don't have any other choice.
Yeah, we have no choice to be in the canyon, and the canyon's already pre-made. We're walking the maze. How do we have any control over that? Can't go backwards. Gotta go forwards.
Yeah? Does it matter who made the canyon? What made the
Okay,
canyon?
okay, forget who made it, but how do we have control then? I mean, are we predestined therefore to live these unlived lives, or to not? Are we predestined to have these unfulfilled lives, these unlived lives?
Yeah, that's a quality of being human. That's an inescapable.
But then
artifact.
I should be able to blame somebody for that then, not just myself.
But why do we want to blame anybody?
Because I'm unhappy, my life is unlived.
And there's the problem. Why can't we accept that sometimes we're unhappy in life?
I can accept it, I just don't want to be unhappy.
And now,
That's hard.
No wonder you're Craig.
and when my daughter was 6, she used to say things like that, only not with that language. I don't want this. Oh, well, I'm sorry, sweetheart.
But then we're back to the Eckhart Tolle quote.
Well,
I'm keeping it like
yeah,
that.
in a way, but there has to be something more substantial than just you find your purpose in whatever you're doing at the moment.
But that's all you have.
That's nice and pithy, but this is a very difficult thing for human beings to do. And part of my problem with a lot of the self-help stuff that's out there is that it's all made to sound so easy.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't do it, there's something wrong with you.
Because the answer's right there. Don't you see it?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's much, much harder to do it than it is to say it. And I get really, I just don't have much patience anymore for that kind of nonsense. Because it's very difficult to, you know, Plato said one time, be kind to everyone you meet, because everyone you meet is fighting a very hard battle. And this presupposes this kind of nonsense that gets spouted by the rather naive and smiling face of the New Age, in my opinion, is not helpful, because it basically sets you up to feel bad about yourself, because what is being proposed as a solution to the problems of life is not a solution at all. It doesn't work that way. Life doesn't work that way. You can't simply manifest. I mean, look, you want validation, then just look around us. Who among us lives the kind of life they desire? Who has everything they want? This is a...
Well, they have excuses for that, too.
Yeah.
So then is it...
And they usually land, you know, on the individual.
And that's why
You're
you feel
doing it
bad
wrong.
about yourself, right?
You don't have enough faith.
You're
You don't-
losing the game.
Yeah.
So if we're in the canyon, then our purpose, therefore, is just to be kind to the other canyon walkers.
Yeah. That might be one way of finding or experiencing purposefulness.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
But another way of experiencing purposefulness is by being willing to engage in the disorienting, overwhelming, disturbing nature of our own existence. And if we can kind of engage that and be curious about that and explore that without making judgments about it, we get, and Kant actually talks about this in Critique of Judgment, we get the experience of purposefulness if we're able to engage life that way. Another German that I would rather quote than Philo.
So if we enjoy the wonder of how awful things are, then that's a purpose.
Yeah, and I don't even know that we have to enjoy it. I think,
Well, if we wonder
accept
at it, we just accept it.
Yeah. And then there's a part of us that reaches into that disorienting, overwhelming, disturbing experience that starts to make sense out of it. And when this kind of alternation between starting to make sense out of something that you can't possibly make sense out of and being overwhelmed by it, when that alternation begins to happen, there is some equilibration that begins to occur. And that's where Kant says that we have the experience of the sublime as something beautiful.
Mm. That's something that rubs me the wrong way. People are trying to make sense out of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because that just leads to lies, more lies.
Yeah, and I think we
How
have
does that lead to more lies?
Because there is no sense, and you're just lying to yourself to think there is sense that you can comprehend as an intellectual.
He's comprehended the whole canyon thing. How's that not figuring stuff out?
I didn't say I don't participate in it. It just annoys me.
That's only figuring out the canyon, the particular canyon that we're in. There's all kinds of other canyons in the world. And I think that it's important to note that even though we begin to apprehend a little bit about this overwhelming, disturbing, disorienting experience, we don't actually and finally understand it at all.
We never get the chance.
But there's a part of us that reaches into it as it's reaching into us. And in that small moment or that small place, there is an aesthetic experience that's created. And that's, according to Kant, what the sublime is.
Mm. So if we had the energy and the wherewithal to climb out of our canyon, we would be left on this mesa without guidance. And it would be totally alien and strange to us and horrifying. Imagine that.
But why would you think there's no guidance there?
Because there's no canyon. You crawled out of the canyon.
But there could be cairns or big signs that say go this way, or some dude with a big staff pointing over here.
Oh my
I don't know.
God, you're such an idiot. I can't believe it. Sorry, I just had a flash of. I couldn't control myself.
That's okay. Please be open and honest with or your missus. Why not though? Why not?
That's not the point.
No, it is the point. Why? First off, can you even climb out of the canyon?
That's the proposition. So
Okay,
you did.
Okay, you
Just
did.
say you did.
But why all of a sudden?
Because we're
Is there
always
no-
whining about being in the canyon. Oh,
Okay, so you're out of the
so
canyon,
what
but
if we
why?
did?
Okay, so why you're out of the canyon? Why all of a sudden is there no guidance?
Because it's like a canyon.
I understand your metaphor.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden you're in this new realm.
Yeah.
You've leveled up, and now you get no help.
Did I have help before?
Yes, you were in the canyon, which was pre-planned for you. Was that not help?
Wait, no, don't go there.
No.
You can't say it was pre-planned, I think. But
How is a canyon not pre-planned? What am I missing?
it's just where you seem to find yourself located. I don't know that it's pre-planned. I mean, that's that, again, I'm not willing to
Don't get divine on me, Craig.
I'm not willing to lend that kind of anthropomorphic projection to the universe. That there's some creator.
I didn't say creator. Maybe you're doing it yourself. I didn't say creator, God, whoever created it. Maybe you created it yourself. I said pre-planned. I didn't say who did it.
Yeah.
Maybe you and your buddies got together and said, hey, wouldn't it be great to go on this fantastic
It's
adventure?
circumstantial. It's just
You're just avoiding
there.
the question.
Well, when you get if you have the attributes and all of the stuff that it takes, to climb out of the canyon, it's a very difficult task in itself. Once you find yourself on top, there'll be another set of challenges that you'll have to deal with.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
But I'm just saying, why-
that'd be a mountain lion or a woolly mammoth
Okay,
or something.
but how is that not pre-planned? Like the canyon. What am I missing? Am I missing something?
I think Maureen's having trouble with the word planned,
Well, it was there before you got there.
right? I mean,
Something had to plant it there, right? There's gonna be a
I
smackdown
can't
after I talk. Try to turn off the recording.
talk, things get destroyed.
I think this boils down though to something that's also fundamental to being human, is that we so desperately want to be other than human.
What we think of as other than human.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always, we want to fly. I want to be a bird. And then you go out and look at your chickens and go, maybe I don't want to be a bird.
You just have to be specific. And I think a lot of people get in trouble because they're not, they don't put in the details.
Like a
What they
contract
actually-
or something?
Well, not a contract, but you just said, well, I'd like to be a bird, and you end up a chicken. Be specific. I want to be a bald eagle. I want to fly over the Grand Canyon every day. And I think a lot of people get lost and disappointed and frustrated because they don't have that kind of detail in what their purpose is.
Because they turn into chickens?
If you don't give the details, something's going to have to choose for you. You said you wanted to be a bird. There's lots of birds. How about this one?
Is this a genie analogy?
I don't know what it is. Take it whatever. I don't want to.
I don't know where you're going. I'm trying to fill in the gaps here. Who gets in trouble for saying that?
No, I'm just saying
For what though? I just no.
because you end up becoming a chicken. You said I wanted to be a bird, and then you
Yeah, I got that.
end up a chicken.
So
And my whole point is why don't you start being
Aiming
excessively aiming higher?
Okay.
Why don't you aim higher? Why don't you start being excessive in the details? Like, okay, well, instead of just saying I'd like to be a bird as my purpose in life.
Well, that's very interesting.
And
When we were kids, we were thinking about, I want to be a movie director, and I want to do this, and then, as life goes on and things are not that way, then you sort of settle for less of that big picture. Is that what you're...
Yeah. Well, maybe we just stop dreaming big or filling in the details because we don't want to be disappointed, because we were disappointed that we weren't the movie director or the astronaut or what have you.
Well, I think there's some of that, but I also am forced to remember that I can't be a bird, no matter how much I want to be one.
I hope he was using it metaphorically.
Yes, I mean, metaphorically.
No, I don't know what goes in there. It goes in, this
But
strangely
again,
pointed head.
and there's so much fortune, there's so much luck, there's so much accident involved in it. Why aren't you Martin Scorsese, right? Because you got
That's right.
a similar vision, you've got a similar talent for image, you've got some of the skills that you need. But we seem to run up against this in our lives that somehow we don't get the break. We talk about it in that way, right?
The break.
But what is the break? These are the things that are interesting to me.
And they're all confused and illusory, as we mentioned.
I have a friend who's the most brilliant poet. I just enjoy reading her stuff. And she lives down in Fountain Hills. Hey, Stephanie, if you ever listen to this. But why isn't she famous?
Well, for one thing, she's a poet.
Wow, sorry, Stephanie.
But she's not. Why isn't she Robert Bly? Right? Why? What makes? See, there's something that happens that we don't have any control over that gives us opportunities.
Boy, we don't like to think that. See, if things were designed or pre-planned or whatever idea is, then it would be, your life would be based on merit, right? Only just as if you're good, then you get the reward.
not
If
necessarily
you're a
at
good
all.
boy, then you get the candy.
Maybe it's all about what you're supposed to learn. Maybe this is all just a training simulation.
Oh,
Your
not
little
this
canyon.
again. Not
Okay,
this again.
but
Totally.
now, if this is a simulation, if this is a program,
Okay.
that almost definitionally excludes free will.
Yeah. Exactly. We're walking in a canyon that was
Yeah.
pre-designed, so we
So-
can learn something. So we learn to be kind to the other canyon walkers or
Now,
whatever.
the other thing that's curious to me is
Brad said that, not me.
how is it that we have to know what this is that we're engaged in? Why is that so important? Why is it so important to know that this is a simulation as opposed to some naturally evolving?
Because
That's my
because
thing.
we're curious beings,
You're
and we
looking
gotta
for
figure.
meaning. Forget meaning. Meaning is irrelevant.
But no,
No, it's
I
not.
think there's relevance, but I think the idea is that there's not ever a meaning that is going to be indisputable. I mean, it might be this, and it might be something else. And to me, that's where it gets interesting. What might this be? That's great fun to speculate about. But I'm not sure that there needs to be, a definite conclusion arrived at. Let's see what we can, it's like taking a car out on the road and just seeing what it can do, right? Let's see what it can do. Let's test the limits of what we're dealing with here.
Well, that's the only explanation. I mean, if it is pre-planned, how evil of a plan, how much more evil could it be than to instill a sense of free will and then not give it?
That would just be outrageous, right? It would be like keeping a bird in a cage or cattle in a pen.
Until we eat it.
Die.
That's what the real reason is. Fatten us up.
Soylent Green.
God's
Buddy.
Soylent Green.
They're people!
Little did we know it. God eats humans. I know you know. You're just lying. You set this whole thing up.
I didn't come up.
You know all
I was
of.
predetermined that you were going to pick this subject today, so you can finally understand the truth. Okay, we have like 3 minutes.
Oh, 3 minutes. Let's wrap it up.
Did we come to any conclusions?
No.
That's the
Do
beauty of
we,
it.
do we ever?
To be continued next week, when we'll finally have some answers.
When we drive the next car on the lot.
That's
Yeah.
right.
There you
That's
go.
all it is.
You're just gonna see what this baby can do.
And Craig's paying for the gas, so.
Yeah. I enjoy your company, so why not? I do, even though you threaten me with violence on a continuous basis. I know it comes
Good
from a
for you.
loving place.
There's a trauma bond.
All right, so So is that it? Anything else?
We came up with some beautiful stuff.
Okay.
I got nothing more.
All right. See you next time, I guess.